Hi, my name is Jessica Yellin. Welcome to the Endgame panel. You are welcome to take video and pictures if you hashtag it with hashtag Endgame is coming. So it is my pleasure to introduce James Frey from Cleveland and from all of your knowledge of well-known international bestseller. His first 3 books are A Million Little Pieces, My Friend Leonard, and Bright and Shiny Morning were all #1 bestsellers in the US and also international bestsellers. His work has been published in 42 languages, and he is the co-author and mastermind of Endgame.
People aren't usually so nice.
We're a friendly room. Wyck Godfrey is an old friend of mine and the filmmaker who will bring Endgame to theaters for you coming soon. He is with Temple Hill Productions, and he is co-producer with Marty Bowen of a number of movies you're familiar with, The Twilight Saga, and with 20th Century Fox's The Fault in Our Stars and The Maze Runner. Wyck Godfrey. John Hanke is a vice president at Google and founder of Niantic Labs. That's a startup inside Google. I see her, here's some applause. That works at the intersection of mobile, location, and social apps, and has launched 2 games so far, including the real-world game Ingress, which he'll get into later. Prior to this, you might be interested to know that John led the Geo group at Google, responsible for Google Maps and Google Earth. So he helped us all get here today, probably. And Mat Laibowitz has a PhD from MIT. He creates large-scale interactive experiences and has been doing this for more than 15 years. In 2012, he founded Futureruption. It's a research and development company that designs and deploys new types of entertainment into, quote, the fabric of human experience. We'll learn more about that shortly. Okay. So James, we'll start with you. The book takes place after a global catastrophe, and it follows a group of uniquely skilled teenagers as they compete to save themselves and their bloodlines. Can you describe for us a little bit about the plot, the characters, the action?
The plot, the characters, the action. So I love conspiracy theories and I love aliens, and I read about those things a lot. Some of what I'm about to say is real information and some of it's not, and I'll tell you when I'm switching back and forth. Real information. The Genome Project was complete in 2004. When they fully decoded our genome, they started going backwards in time to see how we had evolved, or if we had evolved at all. They reached a point 12,000 years ago where human genetics were altered. The genetics related to cognitive function of our brains changed. This is fact, 12,000 years ago. They do not know how they changed or why they changed, and they did not change in a natural occurring way. The only thing they have ever seen like it is when they can genetically engineer rats or other animals in labs. 12,000 years ago, the earliest civilizations, around the same time this genetic alteration occurred, the earliest civilizations were all formed. They were all formed around gold mines. Nobody knows why people 12,000 years ago built the earliest civilizations on Earth around gold mines, but they did. Gold isn't functional. You can't make a hammer or a knife or a sword out of it. Gold is pretty, but there's lots of pretty things in the world. And gold's only value is the arbitrary value we attribute to it. But for some reason, ancient people needed and wanted gold. Approximately 12,000 years ago, all of the world's origin myths were born. And they all say the same thing. They all say our omnipotent creator descended from the sky, created man, gave us rules to live by, and then left. But before our omnipotent creator left, it told us that when it came back, it would come back, and when it came back, the world would end. So I read that shit, and I say, 12,000 years ago, aliens came to Earth, and they needed gold for some reason. So they genetically engineered this raw labor force that they saw running around, grunting, and they organized us into civilizations to mine for them, and then they left. What we did with it for the book is we say they started 12 civilizations all over the world. And we use the 12 oldest civilizations on Earth in the book. They are all extinct, and they, for the most part, have vanished. Examples are the Mu. The Mu are the earliest known peoples in Japan. The only trace we have of them now is a sunken underground city that's a half a mile underwater. In North America, we use the Cahokians. They know at some point, several thousand years ago, there was a city in Missouri called Cahokia that had several 100,000 people that lived in it. It's gone, utterly disappeared today. They're just traces of this city. So we say the aliens created these 12 societies. They said, when we come back, a game will be played. You have to keep somebody prepared to play this game. The way the game finishes will determine the future of humanity. The person prepared to play this game has to be under the age of 20, and they always have to be ready. So for thousands and thousands of years, these ancient civilizations have existed in secret. And we say that a lot of the world's secret societies, the Illuminati or the Brotherhood of the Snake or the Rosicrucians, are in fact real, but they're not devoted to the New World Order. They're devoted to training endgame players. Have existed to get ready for the game. All that the world knew is that it would be kicked off by a celestial event. So at the beginning of the first book, 12 asteroids simultaneously hit Earth's surface. They do trillions of dollars of damage and kill hundreds of thousands of people. And most people on Earth think it's a fluke, except for the people who have been training for Endgame, and they know that it just started. These players all go to China. Now we're going to switch back to real information. There's a pyramid in China. It's called the Great Pyramid of Xi'an. It is built to the exact dimensions of the Great Pyramid at Giza, except it's 3 times larger. They know that at one point the Great Pyramid at Giza was covered with white limestone and had a gold cap on it. The one in China is still covered with white limestone and has a gold cap on it. The reason you've probably never heard of the Great Pyramid of Xi'an is because the Chinese government restricts travel to within 150 miles of it, and they black it out on all commercial satellites. The last time anybody saw the Great Pyramid of Xi'an was in 1945 when US fighter pilots flew over it and took pictures of it. Our 12 players go to the Great Pyramid of Xi'an, and they learn that Endgame is the hunt for 3 keys, that 3 keys have been hidden around the world, and the first of them to physically possess those 3 keys wins Endgame. And what they win is, in the coming, all of humanity is descended from these original 12 civilizations. The winner's civilization, the descendants of the winner's civilization will survive the coming apocalypse, and everybody else on Earth is going to die. What we're doing is, written into the text of each book is a puzzle, so that as you read the book and you read about the hunt for these 3 lost keys, each of the first 3 novels is about the hunt for one of the 3 keys. There's a puzzle in the book that will allow you to find a real key we've hidden somewhere on Earth. If you find the real key we've hidden somewhere on Earth, it opens a case filled with, for the first book, $500,000 of gold. For the second book, $1 million worth of gold. And for the third book, $1.5 million worth of gold.
So just to clarify.
I hope that all makes sense.
That is a literal fact. There will be gold for the winner of each of these puzzles.
There will be gold on public display. If you get the key we've hidden, you get to go to the public display, open the case, and walk away with $500,000, $1 million, or $1.5 million in gold.
Okay. We're going to get back to that in a minute. But for now, this is it's not just a book and a puzzle. It's interactive project on a large scale. There's a film, but there's also a Google piece. Before we get to the rest of the gentlemen, can you, James, give us a little bit of a sense what the overall project is for you?
So, we live in the 21st century, and as a writer or a storyteller in the 21st century, we have all sorts of tools available to us. We have, words, and we have a word processor, but we also have Twitter, we also have search results, we also have images, we also have videos. And the sort of The future of entertainment has been debated and theorized, and some people call it immersive media or integrated media or transmedia, but nobody's ever actually done it. You know, everything that has been done has been reactive. So Harry Potter becomes very popular, so they build a universe around it. What we wanted to do here was build the universe ahead of time. So Endgame in its totality is 3 novels with each with a puzzle and a prize, 35 novellas. All the characters, or the 13 major characters in the book, have had social media profiles for the last year. Twitter profiles, Google Plus profiles. We have a YouTube channel with 5 hours of content on it. We're going to make movies and television shows. We're making a mobile game. We're going to have an ARG with a fiction that exists alongside of it. And the idea was to build as big and broad and immersive a universe as we could possibly conceive of before anybody knew that it existed, so that when Endgame comes out, there's this giant, there's about 100 websites built at this point that are all linked together. So that when Endgame comes out and people start reading it and playing it and trying to solve the puzzle and seeing the film, that there's this giant world already there, and we'll be expanding on it from there, but we're not going to be building things reactively. We've already built it all for you.
Now, Wyck, you're bringing this to film, and you have a reputation for making movies that aren't just action-packed but also emotionally alive. What drew you to this project?
Honestly, I've been a fan of James's writing since he first started writing. When I heard that he was writing a book that sort of fit in the mold of the kinds of films I had made, I wanted to read it. And I think the thing that drew me most to it really was, I've always been drawn to stories that ask big questions, you know, about life, who we are, why are we here, who put us here, is there something more than just the physical realm that we're living in? And that's the thing that I tapped into. I wasn't looking to find like a futuristic YA thing anymore. I feel like there are a lot of those out there. What I really connected to, it almost felt like a Roland Emmerich movie. It was like a disaster's happening today, and some people are in on it, and I'm not, and I want to figure out like what's going to happen to the world. And I like the idea of people answering the question of why are we here and what are we intended to do as a species. So when I talked to James and he sort of started to walk me through the ambitions for the project, it's also something we've been looking to do, is to finally find a way to make a movie, but don't just make the content for the movie, make content beyond that. You know, be able to make shorts within the context of the movie that you can release before the movie comes out, interstitial content from movie 1 to book 2 perhaps. So you kind of build out the way that James wants to build out his property. Makes sense to do it in visual media as well. And that ambition I really responded to and wanted to be a part of.
It's a huge undertaking. As you read the book, he takes you to some of the world's greatest monuments and wonders that are very far-flung.
Yeah.
Do you see this as a big challenge?
No, well, it's a challenge, but it's an exciting challenge, and it's one of the reasons we brought in 20th Century Fox as a partner, because they have a huge movie studio, they have a huge television studio, they have a network. We can build it out in the ways that James envisioned, and really it's about finding those creative partners, writers, and directors who have the same ambition that he has and we have.
Is there a character in particular you're looking forward to introducing the world to?
I actually, my favorite character in the book is the Moo, and she's mute. And she doesn't speak, but she's a badass.
She is.
Each of the 12 players in the book, you know, they're kids. They're all under the age of 20. And they've essentially been raised since birth in their culture to be unbelievably capable, highly skilled assassins. So imagine if you were walking down the street and you saw a 16-year-old Japanese girl who was as much of a badass as a Navy SEAL. They each sort of have their own weapons that they carry. They each have their own styles. They each have, you know, some are masters of disguise, some are masters of stealth, some speak 12 or 14 languages. I love the character too. Her name's Chiyoko Tieda, and she's a Japanese who's essentially like a 16-year-old ninja who uses blow darts and throwing stars and a sword and She hurt some people.
She's very cool. So you may have heard that this also comes with an embedded puzzle connected to a pot of gold. Matt is their puzzle master. So Matt, can you explain to us, first of all, how does a person compete to win the puzzle, and how did you come up with this?
Well, I mean, it's really based on the actual story. The book itself creates a game within the story.
A little louder.
Creates a game within the story that have these 12 players competing using a wider range of techniques, like some just try to kill people, some figure things out, where's the key, and there are different attacks on it. So we really wanted to capture that in the puzzles embedded in the book. Some require, you know, learning about some history, some require figuring out things in a more traditional puzzle. That was our general attack on that, to look for this diversity of skills, but also to really take advantage of the opportunity to create a new type of storytelling. So all of the puzzles are based on potential historical events that could happen in the world of Endgame prior to the events that actually take place in the book, and really designed around the idea that you're pulling the story from what the characters are feeling, using puzzles to challenge the readers of the book in a way that's similar to what the characters are facing.
Now, James told me earlier that this is something anybody could do. You could be sitting at a computer at your home in India and solve it, or here in San Diego. And so it's accessible to anybody who reads the book?
That's right. And to allow it to be accessible globally to anyone who reads the book, but keep it in the style that you feel like you're kind of traveling through the world of the book, was really a really cool design challenge.
And what qualifies you to write a puzzle? How did you get trained for this?
Just doing it, I guess, you know. I've created a lot of events that I really use puzzles as a way to engage people in a story. Because, you know, you're figuring something out, and a lot of what you would do in a narrative would be the characters figure things out. And so it's just a technique to draw people into a world or a story.
You also have a PhD from MIT, which kind of helps.
I was going to say, you just have to be smarter than everybody
Super,
else.
super smart. And on the theme of super, super smart, John Hanke, which is your piece of this is separate from the puzzle, but it's also a game, different kind of game. Explain.
Yeah, I can talk about that. Before I met James, we were working at Google on this idea of how can we use Google as a way to tell stories in an immersive way. So I worked for Maps on a long time. I had this idea about building a game on top of Maps. There are a lot of gamers at Google, and we got to talking about, well, could you use Maps? Could you use Google+? Could you use YouTube? Could you use Search? Could you use all these things together to tell a story in a new way? And so we built a game called Ingress to kind of experiment with some of those ideas, and maybe there's some players here today. But we tried some of this stuff. So, you know, it's a game that takes place all around the world. It's built on top of Google Maps. You have to go outside and visit places in the real world to play the game. There are books and comic books. There's a weekly show on YouTube with a news anchor who describes everything that's happening. So, yeah, we were kind of playing around with this concept, but then I talked to James, and you know, he had been thinking, I think, a lot about the same ideas, and it seemed like a great fit. The story of Endgame, which is this global game, it has this puzzle element to it, this compelling set of characters. So we began thinking about how to bring those things together. If we could go to the next slide. I mean, just to give you an example of the kind of activity that this type of game stimulates, we have people climbing mountains, chartering planes, renting helicopters, playing on their bikes, going to the far corners of the world to play. I mean, you can play in your backyard, you can play in the neighborhood that you live, but a lot of people travel to play. There's over 500 people playing in San Diego today at an event that we're having. So we're really excited about this style of gameplay, and I think it's a great fit for what we want to do with Endgame. And the next slide kind of shows a bit, well, people have been so enthusiastic about Ingress. We've had several dozen tattoos, which we all marvel at, particularly since all these logos were still in beta when people got these tattoos. So. But we decided not to change them out of courtesy.
Nice.
But to the next slide, So this is some of the early concept art for the Endgame game. So it'll be on iOS and Android, and you'll get to be one of the characters in the book. You're a warrior. You're training to compete. You will have to visit places in the real world to collect items and skills that you can use in these duels. But at the heart of it, and the way that it begins to digress from what we did with Ingress, is it is all about competition and fighting and duels with other players. And you'll do those solo, but also within groups. And there's one more slide, I think. Well, maybe it didn't make it in. There's a really cool animation which actually showed some of the gameplay. But if it's not there, we'll tweet it out afterwards. But yeah, that's the concept.
Yeah, the idea of the game was to use all of Google, and integrate it.
Ingress 142, latitude 7.
Anyway, let's let you
go on.
Search results, YouTube videos, book fragments. But then when you're playing the game on your phone, to turn the real world into a video game. So, as you're reading about Endgame, you can turn on your phone, and everywhere you go, you can play it. You'll walk around and you'll see other players on a map, and if you're close enough to them, just like in Endgame, when the players are close enough to each other, they fight each other, you can fight other people. And the idea was, instead of having this game where you sit in front of a screen and play World of Warcraft on a television or on a computer, we're going to turn the world into a World of Warcraft. That everywhere you go, if your phone is on, you have to watch out, and you have to be prepared to fight people. And if you want, you can try to hunt people down and attack them. At the same time, you'll be...
Just with your phone, though.
Just with the phone.
Just with your phone.
We're not promoting real violence.
At the same time, you'll be able to go on some of these trips, like John's talking about. The Metropolitan Museum in Art has the greatest collection of Sumerian weapons on Earth. So if you go to the Met and you stand in front of those Sumerian weapons, they become part of your arsenal in the game. It's amazing. You go up to Google and your mind gets blown by what they can do up there.
John, what you said about Ingress is that you're experimenting with the idea of using technology and mobile apps to get people more deeply in touch with the real world instead of the opposite. So will you put a point on that, how that would apply here?
Yeah, I mean, you look at cell phones today, and it's kind of a problem in our society that people get together and then everybody immediately just sort of buries their head in their phone and they ignore, each other. And I'm guilty of this too, but we ignore each other, and sometimes we kind of miss the beauty and wonder of the world around us because we're kind of consumed by what's on our phone. And so the idea for Niantic was, can we build applications that actually use technology, and use mobile technology in particular, but actually enhance the experience of the world around us and the people around us, rather than being a replacement for that. So that's what we're striving for. And then, we have phones today, but we know that we have Google Glass, we have watch type devices. There are a whole bunch of wearable technologies that are in development, which I think will make it even easier for technology to help us interact with the real world, rather than putting up a wall that kind of separates us from the good stuff that's out there.
You got a group of some pretty badass guys together to do this. How did you come up with all this?
I don't know.
What about your favorite book as a kid? That's a good place.
Masquerade. All of this was inspired by Masquerade. I grew up in Cleveland. When I was 10 years old, my mom brought home this book for me called Masquerade. Masquerade was a really simple children's picture book, and it had 16 pages of text and 16 pages of paintings. Embedded in the text and the paintings of this book were a puzzle. And if you could solve the puzzle, it led you to the location somewhere on Earth of a solid gold, jewel-encrusted rabbit that the author had buried in the ground. I got obsessed with this book, and I read it over and over and over again. And I was convinced I was going to solve the puzzle and find the gold rabbit and sell it and buy a bunch of Star Wars action figures. I didn't. But I never forgot the experience of the book. And what that book was to me was a book that was somehow more than a book, that went with me everywhere, that made me look in the real world and made me try to learn about things that I didn't know about. The solution to that book was the rabbit was buried at the location of Richard IV's grave. And there had been some mention of him in the book. And so for years I thought about it, and I thought, how can I do this? How can I do my own version of Masquerade? How can I do a bigger, more advanced 21st century version of Masquerade, which is taking a book and making it something more, making it an entire experience that exists in the real world and exists on phones and exists in visual mediums and lives with you everywhere you go. And that was the inspiration, and then it was just figuring out the right story, and then it was going to each of these guys sort of individually and begging them to do it with me.
Now, for the puzzle piece, you said this is about the known and the unknown. Do you know the answer to the puzzle Matt has built?
I don't. Matt and I have talked a lot. We've obviously done a huge amount of work on the puzzle, and maybe 6 months ago we were talking about whether I should know the solution to the puzzle or not. And I thought it was actually cooler that if I didn't, that as Endgame is played and as the puzzles are solved, that I'm learning about it at the same time as all the readers. So right now, 3 people I think know where the puzzle is. Matt and a gentleman who works with him named Adam, who's over there. And if at some point he doesn't, we have to tell our lawyer where it's hidden, so that when it is solved and when the puzzle is over, that we can prove that it was done properly and fairly and legally. But I don't know. I think it's awesome.
It's like a sealed Price Waterhouse envelope.
Kind of. It's going to be a sealed envelope in our lawyer's safe in New York City. Okay,
then the gold. Are you going to actually purchase gold bullion?
Yep. We have purchased $500,000 of American Eagle gold bullion coins. I can't say where they will be yet, but they will be on public display.
No, keep going.
Yeah.
This is for me.
So
I'm not getting the gold.
I took some of the money we had made selling this to various people, and I bought the gold. So I'm putting up the money for the prize, and we have the gold. It's in a safe in Reno, Nevada, where we bought it from a gold dealer. And it's about 2,500 coins. The coins are U.S. legal tender. They're produced by the U.S. Mint, the federal government. And they come in 1/10 ounce gold denominations and 1/4 ounce gold denominations. And the pile of gold will be on display. You'll be able to go look at it, take a picture of it, tweet about it. And when somebody gets the key, they will take that key that they find when they solve the puzzle, and they will open the case, and they will walk away with the gold.
I have a question about the key.
Please.
So if you are trying to solve the puzzle in the middle of Africa, do you have to physically get the key, or can you solve it and give someone the information that allows you to get the key? Like, they don't physically have to travel to find a key, do they? Or do they?
That's probably, since I don't know what the solution is.
The word key means a lot of different things.
Yes, okay.
The word key, I do know that. The word key is a very broad word in today's world. A key can be a lot of different things. And there are a lot of ways to lock things and a lot of ways to open things. So a key could be anything. We did discuss that.
Oh, yeah, I think I just figured it out.
Right. I'm going to keep going, but if you guys have questions, you can start to line up at the mic, and we'll start taking questions shortly. We've alluded to it a couple of times that there's a lot here about creation mythologies, or origin myths, and also the importance of gold. How much of this was based on your own personal beliefs, and how much research did you have to do?
Do I believe aliens came to Earth and genetically engineered us?
My roundabout way of asking.
I don't know. I mean, I read, if you read the Bible, there's some pretty extraordinary stories in it. I don't pretend to know I have the answer to how and why we're here. I think these questions that come up are really interesting. There are these ancient worlds that knew things that we don't know. And, the fact, and it is a fact, that our genetics were somehow altered 12,000 years ago is incredibly interesting. And we didn't know that until 10 years ago. I don't know why we're here. I just think it's unbelievably awesome material upon which to build worlds and tell stories. I know, like, my wife, whenever we're at dinner parties and this stuff comes up, she's like, "Shut up. You sound crazy." Did God create us? I don't know. Did aliens create us? I don't know. Are we just a biological accident? I don't know.
Did you have to do a lot of research, or did you know this stuff?
No, I mean, I do all sorts of research. I read all sorts of weird scientific journals and UFO websites and conspiracy theory websites, and I think it's all awesome, you know, and it's interesting, and again, it's great material to tell stories with.
And John, do you have people on staff who are doing research on these same topics, on our origin myths and on our connection to gold, in order to create the real world story?
No, I mean, we're following James's lead on that. I mean, he's driving the story, and we're helping tell that through technology.
I send these guys links all the time.
Like, check this out.
Yeah.
This crazy theory.
5 times a week, I send them new links. Like, look what that, like when they found that hole in Siberia last week. Did any of you see this hole they discovered in Siberia? Immediately, these guys all got links. Like, check out the fucking hole.
I'm starting to believe, James. Starting to believe.
And Matt, what was it like? I assume the puzzle is now solved. It's done.
The puzzle
is done. You know the answer. You're complete. It's locked.
We just have to stay ahead of the people solving it.
Yeah. So it happens as people are hunting, to some extent?
Well, it grows.
Right. And what was the experience like of working with James on developing the puzzle? Or
I mean, just the opportunity to be involved in this and to create is really innovative. I mean, the whole going out and creating this franchise in this world and having an opportunity to create a piece of that is really new. The way you interact with this book has just been a great experience.
If anyone out there has some questions, please head to the
First
mic.
10 people to ask a question get an Endgame prize pack.
Oh, the first 10 people who ask a question do get an Endgame prize pack. Wow, that really makes a difference, huh?
So
Unless they've solved the puzzle.
But my question doesn't count as one, okay? So I have a question about the puzzle that we gave out at the booth, all con. Can you talk, Matt, a little bit about the puzzle and the solution to the puzzle?
Sure, but before we give that away the solution, has anybody solved it?
Two solutions. If you did the puzzle that was handed out at the HarperCollins booth, please turn in your results to that woman standing by the AV system. No, she's coming to you. Okay, we're going to move on. We'll announce the results and the winner in a moment. But first, please.
Hi, this is really exciting. It's my first time actually asking a question at a panel in my 6 or 7 years at Comic-Con, so thank you. You inspired me to get over my nervousness. I got the book yesterday. I can't put it down. It is wonderful. I received my BA in anthropology back a couple years ago, and it's so full of amazing cultural references. Did you do a lot of research? Is my first question as far as cultural references go with different ancient civilizations. And my second question is there a time limit to solve this puzzle?
Answer to the first question. So I wrote the book with the gentleman sitting right there, Nils. It was a huge collaborative effort between the two of us. And yeah, we did a lot of research on the ancient cultures. You know, a lot of them we don't know much about. You know, we don't know much about the Cahokians. We don't. You know, if you look at the Sumerians, everything we know about them is in dispute. We have these Sumerian runes, and one guy translates them one way, and one guy translates them the other. But we did a massive amount of research on what we believe those cultures were like, what their beliefs were, what their origin myths were, how they lived, the types of weapons they used, and the type of warfare they conducted, the languages they spoke. That was a huge part of it. Like, and it's all cool. Like, it was all super cool. Like, learning about it. Like, one of the characters is a woman who's an Australian Aborigine, and so we got into a lot of like their dream theory stuff. She has 2 stainless steel boomerangs that you don't want to mess with her. But yeah, we did a huge amount of research. What happens if is there a time limit on the puzzle? There is a time limit on the puzzle. It's 2 years?
Well, I mean, it's competitive, right? The first person to get it wins, so it's a race. And even after someone claims that, it's still an active game and an active experience, so it could continue. We definitely expect someone to solve it long before.
2 years.
We expect somebody will solve it. But if they don't, if it isn't solved within 2 years, the gold comes back to me.
Okay. Thank you.
And the copy of the book you have now does not have the puzzle.
I know,
right?
but I still can't put it down.
It has a placeholder puzzle. And thanks for reading it. I'm glad you dig it.
Thank you.
Well, that was sort of going to be my question, but it was sort of going to be what's the smallest amount of time that you think somebody could potentially do it in? Is it 6 months? Is it a week? Is it just...
Yeah, that seems like a question I won't answer.
Okay. All right.
I can tell you I go to sleep every night and I pray that it takes longer than a week.
So this is the first time I've heard of it, and my question is kind of the same. How long do you think it would take? Like, can I read the book and be like, man, I know this? Or do I just type the book in Google and think, oh, this and this, and I put the pieces together?
No, it's going to take an enormous amount of work to solve the puzzle.
So, and is it like, because this is the first time I've seen this, is it a riddle, or is that kind of, that's what I'm wondering, what's...
I mean,
Give him a hint.
If you read the book,
okay, that's my problem.
On the first page of it, it says, I don't know exactly what it says, and I don't have a copy in my hand, but it says something like every name, number, word, color, everything on every page. And as you read the book, you'll be able to see that some of the stuff is very obviously puzzle-related material, but some of it isn't very obviously related puzzle material, and you've got to read the book. It goes back to my experience with Masquerade, which is I read this book and I didn't know what was in it. I didn't know what was the puzzle and what was part of the fiction and what was part of the pictures and what wasn't. That's what you have to figure out. But you should look at everything in the book. Everything might be.
It's cool. I'll have to come back next year when you have a panel for number 2. So.
All right.
Sorry, I'm short. Obviously, this is my first time hearing about it also, and I haven't read the book, but I have a 2-part question. It sounds like you're trying to build a franchise, which is exciting. What's your marketing plan for sustainability? And my second question is how do you film a movie based on a living adventure?
Well, you want to go first?
Sustainability, we believe, will come about by just producing material. If there's always something new for a reader or a fan to discover, we'll be able to keep it going. I mean, I think that the greatest example of sustainability in terms of an entertainment franchise is Star Wars. And there's always something new. There's always a new book or a new cartoon or rumors of a new movie, now 3 new films. And sustainability is just about producing material that fans love. And that's how we'll do that. I'll let Wyck answer that.
Yeah, and for us, the living adventure of the puzzle exists beside the movie. Ultimately, we're making the movie from the written material. I fell in love with the book before I knew what the puzzle was. So I'm trying to make a movie of the book and the material that James has written outside of the book, the novellas, the shorts. All of that will come from the stories and the characters that he's created.
Okay, so mention of the puzzle and everything, will that be involved in the movie? Will there be clues in that, or is the movie going to happen further down the road?
Well, I mean, we talked specifically about the movie should be a separate experience. You shouldn't have to be able to afford a movie ticket to be able to solve the puzzle.
And legally, there's all sorts of rules and regulations, and to make this thing legal globally was an incredibly complicated task. We want people all over the world to be eligible to win the gold. And so in doing that, one of the requirements is that the puzzle is solvable via material in the book.
Strictly in the book, so not on the app or anything like that, like strictly within the guidelines of the book you can solve the puzzle.
Correct. We have the right within the rules of the puzzle to add additional clues that might be in the app, or might be in a Twitter feed, or might be in a YouTube video, or might be on a website. But everything you need is in the book, and then we can add additional things along the line if we choose to.
Because traveling the world is very expensive.
The standard with which we built the puzzle was if you get the book in a library for free and you use a computer at the library for free, you can solve the puzzle.
So what about the Google Maps aspect of it? So like the iPhone is terrible for Google.
I think we should move on to our next. Sorry, but we want to get through the line. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm John. I'm a huge Ingress fan. I'm a Resistance agent. Thank you so much. So one thing I've noticed about Ingress, and which also might extend to Endgame, is that people get different things from it, and a lot of people play the game and just, link portals and field without paying attention to the plot. And I'm sure there are people who will read Endgame and not really care about the actually going on the treasure hunt and all of the other stuff that goes along with it. So how much work, does it take a lot of work, and what do you do to make sure that this kind of thing is accessible to people at different levels who might not want to do all of the extra stuff?
Well, I think you're partly answering the question that you can enjoy the world of Endgame that James has created in a lot of different ways. Simply by reading the book, or by reading the book and playing the game and doing the puzzle. So which part of it that people choose to partake of is kind of up to them. But I would also say I think we've learned a lot from Ingress in terms of trying to tell a story interactively and through social media and have that tie into a game experience and have the game actually affect the story. We've been doing that now for a couple of years, and we didn't know anything when we began, and I would say we know a lot more now, and we're applying everything that we've learned to Endgame, which will be an evolution of what we've done with Ingress. So I don't know that we have the magic answer of story and game coming together in one perfect combination, but I think it'll be pretty good.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My question is, so you mentioned if you want the Sumerian spear, you can go to the Met and check in at the Met and earn the Sumerian spear. What about maybe some of your younger players who might be geographically bound and who can't travel far and wide? Will there be ways to earn some of those things in alternate ways rather than physically going to a location to earn points or items?
Yeah, the key sites in the game have been crowdsourced through Ingress. So these exist even in small towns. Things like historical markers, museums, libraries, even a library in a small town. Those are key sites in the mobile game of Endgame. So you can just go to the library, and that's a place where you can acquire objects. Now there will be some really, really special sites, as James mentioned, where there may be very rare objects that are only available in those locations. But that'll make it fun if you do get the chance to go on a vacation or go on a trip. But our goal was to make the game playable and fair, regardless of whether you happen to live in a small town in West Texas, like I grew up in, or if you live in San Francisco or LA or Berlin or Tokyo or Beijing.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Then one little quick one. So I didn't know if you had imagined an age group or an age target, or if this was an ageless game, and if so, can families play together? And maybe is there an opportunity for team play as families or something like that?
We sort of envision it as 13 and up, and legally.
Legally?
That's the requirement.
That's smart. Very smart.
Yeah. Yeah, there's going to be opportunities in the game where you can have like a clan, essentially, where you could band together with 8 or 10 or 500 people and do battle with groups of other people, or gang up on people, or do whatever you want. But yeah, the game is going to encourage socialization and group gameplay.
Sounds fun. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi. My question is about the timeline of each of the games, of the levels. Is that already established, or do you learn about that after the first level of the game? You wait and you find out for each additional level.
Are you talking about
like with each book, like with each level of the game, with the 500,000? Do you find out about all of it at one time, or as you go, you're learning?
I'm telling you now, it's like the first book comes out October 8th, that $500,000 puzzle will be live. The next book will come out in October of 2015. The day that book comes out, the puzzle is live. The third novel will come out October of 2016. The day it comes out, the puzzle is live, and the puzzles will stay live. We believe they'll be solved before the 2-year time limit that's on each of them.
And each puzzle exists in its own. It doesn't carry over through the next level.
Correct. The puzzles do not compound upon each other.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
Hi. So all of your characters have all these Twitter accounts and things like that. So who runs those? And if it's not you guys, who do you trust to run your characters? Because it takes an immense amount of knowledge to be able to run sort of social media sites for people that don't exist.
So a year or so ago, I put out a very odd, cryptic job listing on a bunch of media websites, job boards. And we got all sorts of resumes. And I saw this one resume from a music blogger in Lexington, Kentucky. And he had a music blog called You Ain't Picasso. And at the bottom of his resume, he mentioned that he had been a Dungeons and Dragons dungeon master for 10 years. And I saw that and I was like, that's my dude. And so I flew him to New York and I met with him for a couple days, and he had no idea what the job was. He showed up and I explained, you're gonna start running fictional social media, you're gonna start running social media feeds for characters in a book that has, we hadn't even sold the book to the publisher at that point, for a book that I hope I get to publish in a year or so. And he was like, wow. But he does it. There's a guy, and I sit 20 feet away from him, and I talk to him 25 times a day. And so there's one guy who runs all the social media feeds. There's another guy who makes YouTube videos all day. We just sit and come up with the craziest ideas for YouTube videos. If you want to see some of the videos, if you search Greg Jordan on YouTube, he has his own channel. Greg Jordan is a character in Endgame, so the channel is hosted by a character in Endgame, and you'll find it because it has like an ancient Sumerian symbol of wings. And we just sit in our office in Connecticut and do all this stuff. It's super fun and super cool, and yeah.
Great. We have time for one last question.
I'll try to make it good. My name is actually Agent Falstaff from Washington, D.C. area for Ingress. I'm one of the original representatives for the game that you made, John, in Washington, D.C. And going back to the notion of a game that brings more life into a video game, or that enhances life, one of the things that the game that surprised us was the way that it brought people together in groups of just to play maybe during your commute, during happy hours. Our team has about 400 players in the Washington, D.C. area. Many players have, the world's worst commute. 1 hour each way is the minimum. Maybe mine's an hour and a half each way. That's 3 hours a day. So having this new game come out that you guys designed that sort of saved your commute was an incredible experience. And so I was wondering how the game develops that notion of group play. Is it still something that you're going to be doing on the move while you're exercising? Is it something more that you'll be doing in restaurants, like a lot of people do? Something that you're doing while you're taking business trips and things like that? Is that, how would you enhance the sort of group aspect of the game and the socializing there?
Yeah, we want to build on all the social stuff with Ingress that's working. By the way, there's a meetup at 5 o'clock at Basement for the people playing today. You guys are all welcome to attend. But yeah, we're going to keep all that stuff of going to places. You can play while you're on the bus. You can play while you're on the train. You can play while you're at the restaurant waiting to be seated or to get your food or whatever. But what we're adding is this dueling capability that actually gives you more stuff to do while you're at a location. Because a lot of Ingress players know that sometimes you kind of run out of things you can do in the game before you move on to the next spot. And so part of the evolution of our thinking about game design is that this whole aspect of Endgame, which really pits players against one another in these duels, really will flesh out what you can do within the game experience and help you spend even more time playing the game.
So imagine if you're sitting in a restaurant and your phone will get pinged and it will say somebody's attacking you. You will have to deal with that. Imagine if, hopefully a year from now, there'll be a bunch of people sitting in this room, and as we're speaking, you can be fighting each other, dueling each other. And everywhere you go, you'll be able to do a lot of the stuff you can do with Ingress, but you'll have this additive of player versus player combat everywhere you go.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Unfortunately, we are now out of time, but I can tell there's an enormous amount of interest. If you want to tweet about this again, it's hashtag Endgame is coming. And you can get a chance to get an early galley of the book and get it signed by James and his co-author. That's at 3:30 today at the HarperCollins booth, which is booth 1029. Oh, the puzzle solution. Do I have it? I don't have it.
I'll do this part.
Oh, it's there.
Right. You got it.
So nobody actually solved the puzzle, but hopefully you'll enjoy following along. Basically, on this thing that you can pick up, there's a line of text, and hidden in each line is a Greek mythological figure, phonetically. So in the first sentence, you have Dionysus, that's Dionysus. Second one, you have Persephone, and you can sort of go through them all and find the hidden phonetic Greek figure. And then go to the next slide. And that will leave one word unused in the Greek figure. Go to the next slide. And those words, when phonetically read aloud, if you want to read that aloud, it's great Y-type pyramid, which, hit the next slide, it's Great White Pyramid. And that was the answer.
That was easy.
Thank you all for coming today. Deeply appreciate your interest. I hope you love Endgame when it comes out. Thanks.